Hi everyone, I'm Valencia from Empower to Free. Welcome to today's session of Is Finding Meaningful Jobs Important? Now, thank you everyone for coming along to today's session. And today we're very happy to have with us Bavani, who'll be sharing with us her story. Now, just a little short introduction on who she is. Bavani is an entrepreneur and community work consultant with 7 years of work experience in the social service sector in Singapore. She also has a master's degree in social work from New York University. She believes in generating and leading ideas and businesses that have people at the core. And we're thrilled to have her with us today. Hi, Bavani.
Hi, Val. Thanks for having me.
Right. So at this point, thank you so much again for joining us. And yeah, can I just invite you to share with us your journey or your story of how you got into this sector?
Sure. I mean, this is the future of virtual talks, right? We don't know who our audience is. So I'm just going to talk, and I'm glad that at least there's a face on the other end of the screen, which is you.
Yeah.
So my journey started all the way back, I would say 2009. That's when I graduated from social work. Okay. And to be really honest, I chose social work because that was the only discipline that gave me a scholarship. That's really the
okay, thank you. Very honest.
I was like, okay, I need someone to pay for my degree. And at that point, NCSS was, publicizing about how social work is great. And we didn't really know what social work was. Any family members that we asked, they would be asking, like, do you get paid for it? Is it a paid job? So at that point in time, I chose this profession because I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew maybe I wanted to be a teacher, but then didn't really feel it. And when you're at that age, nothing really seems certain. You just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, I understand.
So social work was the first tick. And when I went into uni, I remember, I think what was defining was finding good mentors. Having lecturers who really kind of kindled the passion, because when you have lecturers with experience on the ground who share with you how their work impacts people, I think that really caused a shift in me finding a purpose in why I wanted to do this work. So imagine bright-eyed Bavani graduating in 2009, going into the field thinking she's going to change the world. We all know this story. Yes, we all know how the story ends. No, it's not always bad. So actually, I was thinking, on hindsight, some level of that naivety is important because that's what gets us going. And I was lucky to join an agency of my ex-mentor. So she hired me, and she was my lecturer, and she hired me, and she said, I'll train you. So I joined a family violence agency. So I was doing specialized work, working with survivors of violence and also perpetrators of violence. So it was intense. It was trauma-focused work, a lot of skills that I needed to pick up very quickly because, in a crisis, you just have to learn. You either drown or you float. So those 4 years that I had were formative. They were really important in kind of being my foundation. But I think all of us throughout our professional journey will reach a point where we will be searching for our professional identity. At the point where you stop absorbing and you start questioning. And I don't know whether this resonates with all of us, but for me, that point came at a 4-year mark, 3 to 4 years. I felt that I had absorbed as much as I could. I was definitely feeling a little burned out in terms of, that balance between am I giving as much as I'm receiving? And when you're giving more than you're getting, the scales are tipped, it's time to do a bit of a reflection. And when I paused and I told myself, okay, maybe it's time that I pursue higher studies. That's the best sabbatical, which, was...
Oh, I know how you feel.
Right? I'm sure it's a story that resonates. So, and again, it came back to practicality, who would pay? And again, I went back to NCSS. I mean, really, we have great government funding, seriously, in Singapore. So I went back and I said, I want to contribute, but I need a break. Would you pay for my master's? So I went through the whole process of applying and landed in NYU. That to me was the one decision that got me out of my comfort zone and opened me to a whole new different perspective of what social work could be. Nothing wrong with the education I had. I think it's also in terms of your life stage. I was at a stage where I was maybe more receptive to different ways of thinking. And maybe being overseas, just the whole experience of not just the learning, but living on my own, being open to new experiences, you know, understanding the context of a different country, different cultures, those things really opens up your worldview.
Yeah.
So those 2 years away, I would say, was amazing. I learned a lot, came back refreshed. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to save the world again.
Again, yes. You know, you need a bit of that kick. So I came back, but this time around, I told myself, okay, I want to change in environment. So I went into Family Service Center, which is a bit more generalist work. Okay. So interestingly, I went from a trauma-focused specialist environment to a more generalist environment. Usually workers do the other way around.
Yeah.
I did the others. So in an FSC, it was challenging, but at the same time, it was really interesting because it opened my eyes to how working in a community could be. You know, it wasn't just casework, it wasn't just individuals that I was concerned about. I began to ask questions about systems, how our policies and systems were affecting how we dealt with families, for example.
Yeah.
So I led us a research study that kind of looked at what were the factors that determined how we view people as deserving in giving out financial aid. Questions like that as a younger worker, perhaps we do it, we're just doing. But as we grow a little more, I don't know, mature maybe in our professional line, then we start maybe thinking, questioning, and also co-creating what that work could look like. So, and I think also having a very supportive environment helped. There were a lot of other workers and mentors in my space who also gave me the freedom to think, to question, to reflect with. Like you need people around you in the same wavelength. Otherwise, it's really hard.
Yeah, kind of like iron sharpens iron kind of thing, right? They push you, you push them, and then we all grow together.
Definitely. If not, you feel like you're alone, and in the work that we do, especially in working with low-income families or families that are vulnerable, you're holding so much of tension that you need your own safety. Which is why like work culture is super, super important. And I've been really grateful that both my agencies have given me that. So that was another about close 4 to 5 years in a FSC. And then as life would have it, my husband got posted to Dubai.
Ah, okay. So that's how you're in Dubai now. I was about to ask, I was like, okay, so there is a transition of sorts.
Yes.
Okay, so how is it like?
Exactly. So my life, I feel if there's a core theme, it is how transitions have resulted in growth. Like that to me is the repeating or the connecting thread. Because, you know, when he was posted to Dubai, then I made a decision that, okay, I'm going to go with him. And that means uprooting. And that also means figuring out what is it that I'm going to do with my skill set. Because most of us know social work in Singapore is very niche. It's different from how social work is practiced in the US. It's different from how, you know, social work is practiced anywhere else in the world. Because of the way our government is structured, it's very niche, you know? So I decided, okay, maybe it's time for a change. And if you notice, it was also the 4 or 5 year mark. It's always
it's like it's that cycle, right? Every 4 or 5 years, okay, it's time to get up and move.
Yeah. And this time I was like, okay, perhaps I might be starting from scratch, but let's see. So I moved to Dubai. That was 4 years ago. Oh my gosh, this is my 4 year mark.
Okay, is something happening now?
This is so freaky. I'm just realizing it as I'm talking to you. But anyway. It's like 4 year life cycles. So when I first moved to Dubai, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, the first year was bad, like shitty bad. It was so hard because, you know, I lost the professional identity. I kept asking myself, like, what is it that I really want to do? And that's when I realized that we peg a lot of our skills to the label So if I'm not a social worker, what am I? Or what has the education led me to do that is beyond just the label? You know what I mean? Like, how else can I contribute to the world if I'm not a social worker? Especially, you know, having like done my postgrad, having had the experience, I'm not like a fresh worker who can start easily from scratch. So those were difficult questions because it made me really like think about what meaning meant, like the meaning making. And I took a break for about a year, dabbled with some writing, dabbled with content marketing, dabbled with dancing.
Very different.
Very different. I was like, okay, this is my blank slate. Let's see what else I can do besides this conventional role that I've locked myself in. And then that's when I realized that the one thing that I end up going back to was wanting to build community. That was something that came back to me again and again. So I started like a dance group with other classical Indian artists. So I'm a dancer as well. That was my other identity. So in starting that group, I realized, there were a lot of women like me who were expats, who were away from family and were looking for connection. What can I do through dance to bring them into that fold? And these are all social work ideas. I mean, they're not new, but the training trains you to think along those lines. So we did that. And then through connection, again, I ended up going to a lot of supper clubs. So in Dubai, there was a thriving food culture. And that was the way I found my people. Like my people need to love food and love people. So.
I feel like that's a very Singaporean team, because like we really love our food and our cuisine. And as long as we are able to talk about that with someone else, it's like instant connection.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be Singaporean food. Like someone from Russia could come and say, oh my God, this dumplings that I grew up with. And then you immediately connect with them because it's not just food.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right? So I think that those conversations gave me buzz. So I learned to listen to what I got excited about and to pay attention to those moments, because you don't have a job description to tell you what you're supposed to do. You have to look out for it and create one for yourself.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So those supper club conversations led us to finding people who, this was our COVID baby. So last year, we set up a restaurant, a Singaporean Malaysian restaurant in Dubai. And that was completely not part of the plan. Like I never saw myself as a restaurateur. I don't cook, by the way. I just
I see what you mean by completely out. It's not even like a side hobby that you do.
No, I don't cook. In fact, my husband is the one who cooks. I market his food.
Wow,
yeah,
amazing.
but again, it goes back to community, because we found the right people. There were 2 other couples from Singapore and Malaysia who came together during COVID. We all had the same mission or vision, which was we wanted to spread our loves for food from our region, our part of the world, to the Middle East, because we saw there was a huge gap. And there was an opportunity, so we took it. And I think looking at where those dots have connected to lead me to where I am right now. Right now, I'm having 2 freelance projects that still keeps me connected to Singapore. So I still consult in terms of their community work with 2 different FSCs. So I still have kind of like my hands on the ground so that I don't really lose touch. But at the same time, I feel my perspective of what social work can be has evolved so much. Some people might say I've kind of lost my way, which could be true. It's no more traditional,
I mean, just because it's not the conventional way doesn't mean you're lost. Like I think I think I saw this quote earlier that said something like, not all wanderers are lost. And you could just be carving out your own path, which I think is precisely what you're doing in Dubai, right? Starting this restaurant, starting a whole new life, building a community.
Yep. Which I mean, it's exciting, but at the same time, it can be daunting because you don't find people who have walked the same path as you. Like if you ask me, do I have a mentor? I have mentors for different things, I have someone in social work that I really look up to and I speak with her regularly. She's been in she's been in one agency for like 30 years.
Wow, that
She's
level
a
of commitment.
veteran. She's a veteran. She doesn't understand why I'm doing the things I'm doing, but she's good at what she does,
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I really am inspired by people who are able to adapt. So post-COVID, I came to know quite a few friends, especially those who were working within Emirate or the hotel who were laid off. And they developed brands of their own that are doing really well today. Like there is a friend that I know, she developed her own brand of sauces, like sambal sauces. And literally,
related?
yeah, and literally now, like that's her main business, and she's doing so well. Like she's created a range of products that's her own.
Wow.
Otherwise wouldn't have done. So I think like having these different people to inspire and to see how, in times of transition, people cope differently. We either hold on very strongly to what we know, or we let go and we find new things.
Yeah.
And it's a risk. It may not always pay out, but it definitely teaches you about what's important to you at which points in life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that journey. I think it's really amazing, and it's really serendipitous because I'm also in a phase of transition in my own life.
Really?
So yeah. Interestingly, I've always known that I love, very similarly, building communities, working with people. But I had to do the practical thing. So I did a degree in economics. And when I came out, I did marketing for a while. Then I'm in finance. And it's the same 4 or 5 year mark where you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I kind of want to do what I want to do and not just what society wants me to do. So I'm actually trying to get back into the social sector. So I'm applying for my master's in social policy. And it's very similar to your journey, except that you did the social work bit already, and then you went to do your master's. So I'm kind of like, I had that gap, but I'm also trying to get back into, the social sector. Yeah, so it's really cool hearing from you. Sorry?
No, I was just going to say something. I forgot. Like, I remember how I felt guilty for thinking that I had put in so much of time and effort and money and energy into pursuing a degree to that extent, and then to want to leave it, which I think is the reason why a lot of people choose to stay, which might be some of your considerations too in wanting to think about doing something that's different from economics or finance or marketing. But I think we also need to challenge what it means to be successful. Traditionally,
yes.
Especially our parents' generation, traditionally being successful meant doing the same thing again and again until you get promoted and you die. Okay, maybe that's
true.
A stereotype.
It's a little morbid, but it's quite true.
It's like, loyalty is rewarded over innovation. And we enjoy stability more than, the need to try different things. But I think maybe we're moving to a generation that's understanding that it's not just about your job description, but your skill set needs to be transferable. We're increasingly looking at an economy that is cross, we're talking about intersection all the time.
Yeah.
And like cross-cultural, cross-discipline. So those are your buzzwords. And if you don't know how to navigate between different sectors and speak across different professions and not be stuck in one jargon, I think that's worrying for me.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very true. And I'm also curious because you painted a really rosy picture of all the different transitions, right? But I'm sure
it wasn't rosy.
I mean, it's always on hindsight, right? Everything looks perfect. But yeah, like you said, I'm sure that there were many challenges and difficulties apart from the transition to Dubai. What were some others that you have encountered on your journey?
I think the big thing or the biggest challenge is dealing with my own insecurities of not knowing if I was good enough. Because when you constantly put yourself out of your comfort zone, you constantly have to grapple with your own insecurities.
Right, right.
It's so much easier if I was back in my social work hole and I know what I'm doing, or at least I think I know what I'm doing. And everyone says I know what I'm doing, so it's fine. But once you get yourself out of that comfort zone, you constantly have to, I don't know, trust in yourself, which is very scary.
Yeah.
Like even now. So now we are in the process, you were saying 4-year mark, what's happening now.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things happening now, which
Wow.
I'm very scared of, but it's also exciting. So we're in the process of setting up a logistics business to bring Singaporean Malaysian brands to Dubai.
Wow, amazing.
It's scary. It's not amazing. It's very scary.
From a third party, it sounds very amazing, but I'm sure going through the journey itself is really hard, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And there's so many unknowns. I mean, so I
Yeah.
keep like if I wanted to, I could tell myself I know nothing about business. I don't know how this startup thing works. Why would I take money from an investor to do this? Am I sure this is going to work? Like, it's so easy to cave into the fears. But at the same time, the why of why you want to do this has to be strong enough to see you through.
Yeah.
And that's a constant like juggle. Like I always go between like I cannot, and then I have to do this pep talk and I can, okay, can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know how you feel and what you're saying, because I feel that way myself every time I enter a new thing. Like, it's almost like primary school, secondary school, and then like tertiary studies, right? You are nobody when you're in P1, Sec 1, or in the first year of school, and then you build yourself up for 6 years or 4 years, and then at the end of it, you leave to become a nobody in another place.
Yes, exactly. That's such a great analogy. It's so true.
Yeah. And but you're so right, that while there are many unknowns, the way forward is really to keep reinventing yourself, and also to not forget that the previous years and all the things that you've done were not in vain. Yeah, like all your years in social work previously has given you that skill set, right? You said empathy, listening, communication, building communities, looking at policies, and that has helped you to create your business now. Yeah.
Exactly. In fact, the more I think about it, the more similarities I see. Like us doing a market study is like doing a needs assessment for a community.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're so right.
And when you tell a story of a brand, it's almost like you're telling a story of your client. Like you need to know what ticks, you need to know their pain points. It's the same as, understanding people. I think those skill sets are very translatable, especially in this world. So yeah. And another thing that comes to mind when you asked about challenge, when I first moved, I decided to intern with she was an entrepreneur, a Saudi entrepreneur, and I found her on Instagram. So firstly, it's so weird because it's not like me to reach out or cold message someone I don't know. I'm not a fan girl.
Yeah.
But then you realize you have to do things that you're not used to when the situation calls for it. So this one, my husband, he was like, just message her. I mean, you like her brand. She is an interesting female founder. It would be great to learn from her. Just message. I'm like, message and do what? Say hey.
Say hi. Want to go for coffee?
Exactly. So that's exactly what I did. I said, hey, I know that you're looking for someone. I don't know if I'll be a good fit because I honestly don't have the skill sets that you say you have. She was in the fashion industry, so removed to what I do. Nothing.
Wow.
And that was luxury fashion, nothing to do with what I like. But I liked the way she ran her business and I wanted to learn. So I messaged her and said, can we meet for coffee? Like maybe nothing might come out of it. So we met for coffee and we clicked. So then that's when I realized there are two reasons why you might do something new. Like you either believe in the work or you believe in the person you're working for. So in this case, it was her. Like I felt she was super inspirational and she was plugged into the Emirati community. And that was a community that I wanted to gain access to. Because if you know Dubai, the expats live in one bubble and the locals live in another bubble. And being me was like, I need to break into that bubble. Like, how can I live in a country and not know any locals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and in the end, I ended up working for her for 2 years. Like the internship,
Wow.
2 years of part time. Like I learned a lot. And that's when I realized a lot of businesses look huge on the outside, but she bootstrapped her operations. It was like 4 to 5 people working around the clock for her.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, because we only have 4 minutes left,
Wow.
we will I'll just give you 3 rapid fire questions and you can just say whatever comes to your mind in 2 to 3 sentences. So the first one is, share with us a common misconception that people have about working in the social services sector.
That we're underpaid. I don't know how underpaid we are now, but from the last I checked, we're okay paid. Not well paid, but we're okay paid.
Okay, decent. Can afford a HDB eventually.
Yes, I think it's very decent. That's one. The second thing is you should join the sector if you have a bleeding heart. But no, sometimes I think you need to be able to make tough decisions. Like yes, it helps if you're kind, but that's not the only prerequisite. And I think the last misconception is anyone can do it. I think it's still important to have proper training and supervision, because there's a lot of what's the word, counter transference or transference. It brings up a lot in you, and
yes.
And if you don't have good guidance, it's easy to do more harm than good. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you for that. So second question, share with us one advice you would give to anyone planning to work in the social service sector.
Just do it. Advice, what can I say?
Nike slogan, all right, that's great.
Yeah, just do it.
And lastly, is finding meaningful work important?
Duh, like that's what I've been talking about. The reason why I agreed to do this, because I felt like it really resonated my life journey. And I mean, whatever I've shared so far, it is a culmination of this one point, right? That you have to continue finding meaning, and that meaning might change, and that's okay.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you concluded by saying that the meaning can change and it's okay, because a lot of times we are either by ourselves or by society, we are kind of molded to believe that we have to stick to that one thing our entire lives. Like what you said earlier, we reward loyalty more than innovation. And so I think that's a great parting message to live with everyone here. So thank you once again, Bavani, for being with us today and sharing all your insights and all your stories. And we hope that you have enjoyed hearing from Bavani. Until next time, bye.